Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, where we talk about designing a beautiful life and a beautiful business, because it's not just going to happen by accident.
100%. It needs some intentionality and some business planning. And I think today we're going to talk about the house of business, which obviously is one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, for people who maybe this is the first episode, Chris, we are talking a little bit about your book, Get Your House in Order, based on Cosimo de Medici. Just frame us here, frame the conversation by sharing in 2 or 3 sentences who was Cosimo and why is he worth using as a case study, because that's what we kind of
in the 15th century he was probably the richest man in Europe, and so it came through the Medici bank. So they were cloth merchants as a family. They went into banking and they built this incredible empire all over Europe. And he was the patriarch. His dad founded it. Giovanni de Medici founded the bank, but he made it successful. And there are all kinds of business lessons that we can learn on how they did that. And by now there's a bunch of books written on the Medici Bank. Every student that studies economics has to learn about that. But there are a whole bunch of lessons. I've done a whole deep dive into the Medici archives. There were some secret books actually revealed later on. They had some books, the official books and the unofficial books, so there were some lessons in the combination of the analysis of that. But in short, it was an incredible cash flow positive business. It was pumping money like crazy, not least of this because they were the bankers of the Pope. So they took over the cash box of the Vatican, and through that also kind of had this incredible network, the Catholic Church back then. This was before the Reformation. So there was only the Catholic Church, but they literally were handling their money affairs. There are some unmoral stories around that, obviously as part of that as well, but an incredible successful business. So a whole bunch of things to learn from that.
Yeah, so actually you divided up your book into 4 houses, basically that we can still visit there. The bank you can't really visit in Florence.
No, so the Medici Bank only lasted for 3 generations, 3 or 4 generations. So it didn't even make the centennial. So it was closed down. So it was Cosimo de Medici, his son Piero the Gouty. So this was the family sickness. They had gout. It's called Piero the Gouty. Then the grandson of Cosimo was Lorenzo il Magnifico, Lorenzo the Magnificent. I'm going to write actually another book on Lorenzo the Magnificent. That's kind of in the making. And then his son is called Piero the Unfortunate. And so he literally went down in world history as Piero the Unfortunate. And one reason why he was unfortunate is because he had to close down the business. By then it had kind of flown to pieces. Lots of stories around how that actually came about. But it was not even 100 years that lasted it. But because the Medici family had positioned themselves strategically beyond business into the other spheres of influence, into politics, art, architecture, and religion, that's why their legacy continued. Yeah. But the actual business didn't last 100 years.
Yeah, and so basically the bedrock was business and was the Medici Bank, and so you focus on Cosimo, who really kind of expanded this the bank, and so as business owners, we want to make sure that our house is in order when it comes to business.
Well, and let me say, I mean, a lot of guys who don't have their house in order. Okay, yeah. So in a simple definition, you can have a beautiful business and you can have a terrible business. Okay, and it's not just on how money is being made here, but it's really on the setup. So some business owners want to commit suicide when they think of their business, because just the setup with the employees, the culture, the way it's operating, it's not beautiful. It's giving them gray hair. They're losing their hair. They're losing sleep over it. So there are actually ways on how to set up a beautiful beautiful business. And one of our mantras here as part of the Medici community is really to figure out, what does a beautiful business look like? How can you design that beautifully? And Philip, you and I, we know that we've set up some stuff where that was not beautiful and where we're not very proud of how it has developed.
Yeah, and that is really the key. That it's not as one aspect is not as how much money are you making and how much profit are you making. We know some businesses, they're making a lot of profit, but if you would ask them, they don't have a bright future. They feel like they've created their own hell. By actually, and we know,
and some people would love to be in that hell where they're creating a lot of money. Let's be honest about that.
But we know a lot of people also who've committed suicide, very successful business owners, because they didn't think they could get out of that rat race. And so, yes, we can always look at it from the outside and say, oh, I wish I would have these problems. And yes, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is like, hey, how many people do you see are generally happy, are really having a beautiful life, and the beautiful thing is you can have both. You can actually create a beautiful business if you are intentional about how you are setting it up and how. So, what did you learn from Cosimo? What are ways where you would say he set it up in a way that was more beautiful than not?
Well, to kind of kick it off is. So one of the principles that I mentioned in the book is he fed the need of his customers. So in a sense, I would say he was not in love with his product or his service, but he was in love with his customers, and he really wanted to cater with his business to the needs of the people that he was serving. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we know that we don't do that, specifically entrepreneurs. I have to laugh when I think of that, because whenever I get pitched to invest into a new startup, new company, you get this, 20-minute long story on how this product is the best in the world, and the prototype, it's all designed so beautifully, and it's the best thing ever. And then I ask the question, and so what have you tested it with the market? Have you have some people actually raise their hand and want to buy it? Or not, or is it just you are in love with your product? So the difference between being in love with your product or being in love with your customer is actually a world of difference.
Well, yeah, I remember one of our very, very successful businesses. It was
know what you're hinting at. Yeah.
We created a piece of jewelry.
Yes.
And it
because it's part of our family background. So our parents actually own a jewelry factory in Thailand, and for many years, kind of all over Germany, there was a big distribution and a lot of jewelry created out of our family business.
So we created this beautiful piece, and it took months of prototyping, of making sure it's going to be done right, and we were ready for our big launch. And we didn't want to go the old way. We actually wanted to kind of distribute it just online, so that it was a whole e-commerce strategy that we kind of set up. And we actually, I remember days before the launch, I made sure that our servers are gonna
handle
the traffic of all the people who are gonna buy. And then I remember,
oh, that's a long time ago. Thank God.
It was we stupidly said we're gonna launch this on the 25th of December. Yeah. So one day
after
Christmas, and in America it was on Christmas Day. We thought they're all sitting on the couch wanting to buy something. It was kind of on so many levels one of the worst things.
Embarrassing. It was very
embarrassing thing. But I remember we were so ready, and then I think we had 12 orders on the first day, and we were thinking of we were ready for.
And this was our family. This was like mom and dad ordering, and
yes.
And our cousins, blah, blah.
Because we were so much in love with our product rather than really.
Yeah. So this is one of the lessons of Cosimo. He had his ear to the market. He knew what the people were speaking on the street. That's why whenever you see a depiction of Cosimo de Medici in Florence, he's always close to the people. He's not elevated as a business guy kind of somewhere far away. He's always close with the people, having an ear to the market. And so one of the things that I took as a lesson out of his life and him setting up business is that he catered to the needs. And so that's easily said, but it's actually quite difficult to put in practice.
in one of the last episodes, I talked about how we took a team to Kenya to do kind of the first impact week where we taught design thinking to business students to then kind of create companies to solve problems. And basically on day 3 of that experience, they already had to kind of had a prototype in hand, and they had to go onto the street
to market,
in Kenya and kind of let people test it, let people see how they're going to use it. So I remember one thing was an app, and so of course back in the day you couldn't come up with a prototype as fast as you can do now online, but they kind of drew the app and how each screen would look like, and then they would have potential customers click on it. And so sometimes we just want to get feedback from friends and family that are going to be encouraging, but we really need to hear from people who are buying.
And we can actually learn from this whole, because you're mentioning app design and app development. I mean, we all know that apps on a regular basis need to be updated. That's what my iPhone does all the time. Basically, there's a new version and you need to update it. What does that mean? That means it got sold without being perfect. They ship before it's ready. They put it on the App Store, and then they already know that next week you need an updated version. So I think that's something we can learn from Silicon Valley, is that you test quick, and there's actually this mantra of fail fast. Yeah. So you test quick, you fail fast, so that you immediately know, is this selling or not? Is this actually fulfilling the need of our customers? And that it's very interesting. Some industry are totally resistant to that. They spend years in product development. And then they take it to market, and they're very surprised that no one's buying. Well, you should have tested this. You should have actually looked at the need of the people.
You have these two extremes because we work in our community. There are dozens and dozens of different industries. So we actually have the advantage of kind of looking what works in one industry and what works in another industry. And when it comes to this, there are actually these two extremes. One industry, the Silicon Valley are driven by prototype test, launch it before it's ready. And then you have another industry that doesn't do it at all. And so some of the magic is actually learning principles that work from each industry and kind of translating them into what I'm doing and what I'm kind of.
Yeah, and for me, the lesson is, the quicker your product allows it to be tested, the better it is, and to actually get the feedback from the customer.
Well, I remember that I've built some products that, or not built them, but I built the marketing first. So that's also always a good rule, to kind of really build the sales letter, the marketing first. And you were like, this is what I'm promising. Now I need to live up with my product to the promise of what I've actually created in marketing. And then I tested selling it before I actually produced it. Now that is dangerous. So I had some sleepless nights because I sold something that I then kind of need. But sometimes to really sell it before you produce it and invest a lot of money into producing it can be very
well. And
successful.
One example from Cosimo de Medici. So they had this incredible bank setup where they were pumping money almost because the way they structured the letters of credit, the way they lend out money. But then there was this the alum mines just between Florence and Rome. There's a region where they had some alum mines, and he knew there was a need in the market to receive to extract the alum, and he actually bought the factory and started bringing that out. It wasn't his expertise. It wasn't where he came from, but that's where he was a true entrepreneur. He invested in it, and actually, it paid off very, 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 very quickly. So, I sometimes joke that the way Cosimo de Medici had set up his whole business, setup looks like Daimler Chrysler nowadays. Like they had holding structures, they had sub branches, they had different companies, like all kinds of things. Because very entrepreneur, looking at what does the market need, how can we step in, and I think that they're true entrepreneurs. Should always be looking at where do I see a need and how can I create something that fulfills that.
So the first house rule under the bank that you kind of write in the book is the art of selling. Talk a little bit about selling and the importance of
yes.
selling from Cosimo's perspective, but also what your thoughts are basically on the subject of selling.
Let me frame it like this. A lot of business guys, we don't come from selling first. We come from the product side. So we just talked about that. So in the country where we come from, Germany, Germany is made up of engineers. Engineers normally
we're sales people.
Well, they are normally not salespeople. They design a machine. They design a product line, and then. At some point they're like, oh, okay, I guess we also need to sell it. Okay, and then
we believe that if we just make it better, people will buy it.
Yeah,
and that's
a big error. The art of selling. So I would say that, Cosimo was brilliant at selling. The Medici Bank, the vision. And that. But kind of what we need to all work through, specifically as business owners. Is how does sales happen within our company? If there are no sales, there's no business. Okay, let's face it. I don't care what kind of a nice product you have. If you're not selling the product, you're not in business. So you need to think through how are you actually attracting clients? How do you are winning prospects? Take them through the process of actually making a transaction. Putting in the order, signing the letter, or pulling out the credit card, or handing you the cash. However you want to do it in your industry. So we need to think through how do sales happen. Now, here's what I've discovered. Some have put on this head of sales as a profession, but most business owners I know, that's not where they come from. I would say almost 90%. That's not where they start off with. They come from some expertise. They come from some more technical background, and then they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to take it to market, and then they hire people to do the sales, or they build out a sales department. Now, one of the things that I took from Cosimo, he was the head of the bank. I would say he was the chief salesperson. And so one of the things I tell business guys now all the time, you need to be the head of sales. I don't care how many people you employ in your sales department. You are the head of sales because you are the one that is taking the product to market. In every conversation, in every interaction, what you as the CEO, as the owner of the company do is you are marketing out to the world. This is the product. This is the service that we have to offer. And so it's also an identity question. Do you see yourself as being in sales? Do you see yourself as being in marketing? If you don't, for me, you don't have a role in business because this is what business is made of. Business is only made of if there is someone who is buying. Otherwise, it's a philanthropy. Otherwise, this is a hobby. Unfortunately, there are lots of guys who think they are in business, but they're actually just, developing a nice hobby. You need to look at sales. You look at marketing. And you as the owner, this is your chief responsibility. Okay? And I've often said, if you, Philip, that my background is in business development. I've helped companies around the world kind of looking at vision, mission, strategy, internationalization, globalization, how to set themselves up. But if you need to look at your top line. How are you getting revenue? And then the bottom line, you can have some people who help you on the bottom line. But your chief responsibility is to take care of the top line, which means you need to get revenue in and you need to put on the hat of sales.
Well, I heard it this way from somebody who said that until you have at least 5 million in annual revenue, 80% at least of your time as a founder needs to be spent on marketing or sales. That's your responsibility. So that's basically once you have more revenue, maybe some more shift to leadership will actually happen. But before that, you really need to learn. Now
you need to grind it out.
The beautiful thing is, and that's really where in the German culture, not just talking about our background, I didn't even know that there was a whole industry that you can tap into now, even for free, if you go to YouTube, to learn on how to sell. And how to convince and really sell your product. And so I kind of told my wife that one of the things so I have a list of things that my children need to learn.
I know Paco and Zoe. They need to learn.
They need to learn, and one of them is sales. Because I know that if you've mastered sales, you will never
be unemployed
or poor in your life. It doesn't matter what war, what crisis, or what disaster will happen. If you know how to sell,
yes,
you actually will survive in any culture, on any continent, under any circumstance.
Oh, that's a good lesson.
And so I don't understand why, because it's a skill that you can learn. And sometimes we have this idea it's all about this, cheesy sales guy, car salesperson. Not at all. You really are, I kind of love the picture of being kind of a doctor, asking the right question, seeing, okay, where's the hurt? Where's the pain? What are you doing? What are you doing to solve it? How can we solve it? And then I can give you a prescription. And I do this in a way through certain questions that then make people will say, yes, I want to do that, and I want to kind of be involved. If price is the only reason people buy from you, you have a problem anyway. So with kind of this idea of selling, what are some tips or strategies or principles that helped you being a better salesperson?
Well, first of all, I mean, you know that I've trained in sales. I've even trained sales organizations and sales team to kind of, look at their process and then help them, kind of, how do you lead people, prospects from, cold or very cold, to warm, to hot, and then to actually closing the sale. There's a whole process that people need to be taken through. And so, just you picking up this analysis of a doctor, a doctor, we wouldn't think of a doctor as a salesperson, but at the end of the day, he writes a prescription and you go and get some medicine. You actually buy something. And so the way he does that is by examination. And then at the end, there is something that needs to be bought. There's a service and then there's a product. So the service is the doctor, the product is medicine. So it is actually helping. So in a sense, sales is if there's a need, there's a product or service that actually helps fulfill that need. So I think it's the most positive thing in the world, and actually, that's where I have zero sympathy for people who don't want to talk or get themselves educated around sales and marketing, because it's a wonderful thing that we can lead people through a process of actually discovering, is there a need for your product? So what I'm not a fan of is hitting people with a hammer. There are all kinds of guys, specifically on the internet, that are shouting at you with all their products and all their stuff. We live in this very visual world where there's advertising all over, and it's like, I always have to think of Times Square when I'm in New York City. Is like, you stand at Times Square and like there are a million messages kind of at you. And no one asks the question, does the guy standing at Times Square, do they actually need all that crap? I mean, most of the time we don't. It's just flashy lights. Good sales is actually taking people through a process of discovering what are the needs, what are you looking for, and perhaps my product, perhaps our service can help you in fulfilling that need. So for me, it's almost like a journey, taking someone like a tour guide. When you hire a tour guide in the Swiss Alps to take you on a journey, you take them on a journey. There's a destination, there's something you're going for, but it's holding the hand and saying, hey, let's discover together if my product, if my service actually helps you.
Yeah, and there are a lot of business owners who feel like they are standing above sales because, like, I don't want to get involved in that process, and nothing happens until something is sold. I mean, our whole structure basically is built upon that. So we really need the mindset shift then, and that's really, as a German, I'm talking now to me and me as a German.
To me and me.
To me and me as a German. We really have to kind of realize that the relationship really only starts once really we are making this commitment of doing this together. So there's also only a benefit of helping somebody really. So before that, we diagnose, we maybe make we analyze. analyze, but to really help and solve the problem that the other person has, the potential customer has, a buying decision has to be made. And we are actually there to actually be the savior, so to speak, in helping them, guide them through that process so that that actually happens. Now, you talked about basically a systemized way of taking people through through this process, and one of the house rules is actually systemize for the long run.
Yeah, so Philip, that's actually where you always help me. I mean, I'm not a good systematizer by nature. I'm not because I'm more the energy and the passion to kind of kickstart and to create something out of new, take it from 0 to 1. That's where I'm a true entrepreneur. I've never been employed in my life, only when I was a teenager. But I started companies as early as I could register them at the local office, and so I've always kind of been good to initiate and start projects and start kind of get the ball rolling. But then we all know, if we don't set up good structures, if we don't systematize what's happening, this is very inefficient. We can have a lot of heat, and no running engine here. And
well, you stay self-employed rather than owning the business. So if you have not set up systems that can actually be delegated and run without you, either through automation or through a person that you actually have trained and delegated to, you are the one who is firefighting. You are the one who's basically still self-employed. Even if you have a big business, you are not truly a business owner. A business owner is really the person who works on their business rather than in, because you have set it up in a way that it can run without you.
Oh, let me just kind of interject here, because obviously we talk with a lot of business owners. There are a lot of people who call themselves business owners, where I would say they don't own a business.
The business owns them.
The business owns them. Okay, so there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay, and here my very simple illustration is this, or the question that I ask is, if you leave as the business owner for the next 3 months and go on a longer, vacation, sabbatical or whatever, and you come back, is your business still running and functioning and growing, or is it so dependent on you and your personality?
Yeah.
Now, if it is dependent on you and your personality being physically in the room, kicking and screaming, or in the office, then actually it's not a business. It's not a properly set up business. You need to work on the systems in order for this to be running.
Not that people misunderstand us. There is nothing wrong with being in that phase. Actually, you that's one of your specialties, to be in that phase, that first phase where it is really kind of grinding it out. But then if you stay in that phase, you will never basically build a true business.
Well, and that's, back to Cosimo, I think, I don't know whether it was just him or his personality or he had some help. I've gone through a lot of letters of his where he's corresponding with other bankers that he kind of pulled to his side. But it was really a question, how do you structure it? For not just for yourself, for your own personality, but really structured for beyond. And that's what we all need. And some personalities, and this is where I'm endlessly grateful that Philip, you and I are working together, because you have that gift. And it's not just a gift, it's, you've studied for that, you've trained for that. That's the area of business development that you've always excelled in, is really looking at the frameworks, looking at the structure, looking at the different departments, and then saying, okay, how does this all need to fit together? And we all need that, whether by inclination of our personality or, we need to hire someone, we need to get someone to our side, we need to have a business partner who's good at that. But somehow this is needed for sustainable business. A lot of business guys, they dream about this passive income thing, like every month they have money coming in. Okay, there's this whole dream about that people sell online, where passive income. We all retire just on money just coming in. Well, yes, you can set up some investments where you have got money coming in every month, but you can actually set up a business like that as well, where your business is producing income. And so if your business is not there, then at least this should be a picture of the future that you want to see. Yeah. So that's what we call a beautiful business. For me, a beautiful business is one that is not fully dependent on me. Otherwise, it's not beautiful. Then it can be quite a nightmare actually.
You have to ask the question: how can I work myself out of the job? So if you currently have the job, how do I work myself out of it so that I actually can that I can get and focus on something else, and you maybe build it, and then we can either delegate it or we can or automate it.
Well, I was just having a conversation a couple of days ago with a friend of mine, and reflecting on my own, 20-some years, 25 years in setting up businesses, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in all of that, is that basically every 3 months, 3 to 6 months, I have to change how I work and how I operate. Otherwise, I'm not really developing the companies. Okay, if you're doing today the same in your business that you did a year ago, I would say there's a problem, because you should have already found a way to systematize what you're doing and move on to the next role or the next job description or the next phase. So, for me, it's employees that kind of do the same thing year in, year out, month in, month out. This is what employees do. Business owners, we keep reinventing ourselves.
Yeah.
We keep reinventing our companies. We keep reinventing our structures in order to set things up.
Great. So this was just a overview of the 4 different houses here that we did the last episodes, and we will go into more detail as things go along. If you want to get the book, Get Your House in Order, just go to medicibook.com.
Please read my book, please.
Yeah, you don't even have to buy it. You can actually get it for free if you go to medicibook.com. If you are interested in the Medici community, which is an exclusive, extraordinary international community of business owners, just go to medicilegacy.com, sign up for a discovery call, and we'll jump on a call and see if there's benefit for you and if you're the right fit for the community. We'd love to explore that together. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so on all the ways and stuff you normally can subscribe.
And
to.
go get your house in order.
Get your house in order. Thank you.